considering minimalism or some form of intentional living in your life, maybe because you're feeling like the world is a bit too hectic and stressful, or you want to make your money go a bit further, there are lots of reasons why you might want to pursue minimalism, and I want to share with you my experiences. When I started my minimalism journey over 5 years ago, I was admittedly a shopaholic. I was really materialistic and I guess leaning towards what you could call a maximalist. And at some point something clicked and I was ready to pursue a more minimal lifestyle, be more intentional, live more simply, and I really found myself at home with minimalism. As with any type of lifestyle, there were so many things in here that I found really rewarding. But at the same time, not all of it was for me. And over the course of the first 4 years, I developed some amazing habits, some really good lifelong things that are now drilled into my personality that I think will shape my decision making and the way I live for years to come, if not for the rest of my life. But over the last year or so, I found myself letting go of some of those habits I learnt as a minimalist in order to have better balance, to uphold the practices that genuinely made my life better and let go of the ones that didn't work for me but I felt I had to try in the name of being minimal. And so you can get a realistic, transparent picture from somebody who's been on this journey for 5 years, I want to share with you 10 practices that are so brilliant that I will continue to do them, that I enjoy doing them, and they add value to my life. But at the same time, on the flip side, I'm also going to share 5 with you that I feel like I picked up as being part of the minimalist community, trying to adopt a minimal lifestyle, that actually, when it came down to it, I just felt like I was doing them in order to say I'm a minimalist. They weren't really working for me and it's time to let them go. And I want to tag on to that it is absolutely fine. I spent years of my life, probably because I put a lot of it on camera, being afraid to admit that there were some minimalistic practices that just didn't work for me. Not all of them will work for everyone, and it is actually okay to cherry pick the ones that work for you. It's about making your life better. So I absolutely will be including the ones that personally I don't do anymore. Let's start with the do's. My first one, my biggest one, the best habit I have trained into myself is to only spend money intentionally. Most of us work really hard for our money, and depending on where you are in the world, you might be finding things feel really expensive. It's harder to make money go as far. You might feel like you're getting taxed a lot. I'm certainly feeling that, which is why for me it's really important that I don't waste money. And so I always think intentionally about all my purchases, and it is very, very, very rare that I will make any sort of impulse buy. And even if you set money aside from this, the thing I'm purchasing, if I'm going to make a purchase, really does need to add value to my life, which is why I always think it through. I like to know that the item is quality, that it's made to last, that I'm not going to spend money and again, have it be wasted. I'm also going to be thinking about how much use I'll get out of an item, or is it just a bit of a fad in my head, and actually when I've got it, I won't end up using it all that much, or I'll use it for a little while and then won't bother anymore. I also think about storage. Is it going to create clutter in my space? I'm not very big on clutter, amongst other things. So I always think my purchases through before I make them. In the past, I have done year-long no-buys, and I think that is the thing that really trained me into that habit, and that is a positive habit. It doesn't mean I'm never allowed to spend money, but it just makes you think about it before you do. Number 2, and this is such an important one for me, is I practice social minimalism. What this means is I only surround myself with people that genuinely make my life better, and I don't involve myself in social circumstances that I don't want to. I am not a very social person anyway. I have a very small group of friends, and those are strong enough relationships in themselves that we can go weeks, if not months, and in some cases a year or two without seeing each other, and we can trust that we will pick up where we left off. There won't be any bad blood, there won't be any guilt over not spending time together more frequently. We are all very aware that we lead busy lives. And this really does come from a place of, there have been so many times where I've made plans thinking I'd want to do something, and then I get to the day and I absolutely do not want to. Now, don't get me wrong, I do not like to bail on plans, so I won't cancel last minute on friends, but what I do is I'm really realistic about the plans I make and the people I'm planning to spend time with. There is never any pressure or high expectation about any social circumstance that I will involve myself in. Number 3 is that I avoid pointless clutter. I don't like too much stuff, so I guess this comes down to when I buy things, or not necessarily even buying things, when you know, someone else is having a clear out and they offer you something, just thinking about how much stuff I physically bring into my space. I recently redecorated my office, and when I was thinking about the things that I actually want as decor, aside from just functionality, I was really particular about the things I decorated with. The vast majority, I'm just looking around the room, the vast majority of things in here are functional or something that we are passionate about and represent us. So for example, I have got things on the walls. I've got the guitar behind me, that's Tom's, because he plays the guitar. We framed our degree certificates because that is relevant to us and our interests, and in our cases our careers. I've got a framed picture that has come halfway across the world, and it's just a picture representing a scene from one of my favourite books. And I've got my shooting certificates on the wall, so again, it represents me, it represents my hobby. But what I won't do is put a mass-produced picture from, you know, the range or Dunelm on my wall, because it doesn't mean anything. So if I'm going to have something out, something to decorate, it's got to be meaningful to me. I don't just want pointless objects everywhere. I don't really have like ornaments and stuff. They expend energy, it's more to clean, so for me to want to put the energy into sort of like dusting these pictures and whatnot, I've got to see value in them. I'm not just going to have pointless clutter that just uses up my energy trying to maintain it. Number 4 is so important for me, and that is stick to a routine. I am rubbish out of a routine. I know I complain nearly every day when I've got to get up early for work, and I always say how tired I am. But when I'm on a break from work, especially if I've chosen to stay at home rather than spend it away somewhere, and I can get up whenever I want, go to bed whenever I want, eat whenever I want, and I've sort of got to plan for myself what I want to do every day, I am far less productive. I've always said I'd love to work for myself and I'd love to work from home. That's probably a part of the social thing. I'd much rather just be by myself when I'm working. But I would have to get myself into a strict routine, as if someone was depending on me showing up, whether that's getting up first thing and going to the gym, or deciding I'm going to do these tasks before I do this and and whatever it is. I am terrible when I'm out of a routine, and so that structure is something that's really important to me. Number 5, I've talked about countless times before, prioritise savings, so financial minimalism. After paying my bills, the next thing I do every month, I talk about it all the time, I say the same thing, is that I pay my savings, and I treat it like another bill, and it's something I'm a big believer in. I always say that if anyone wants to accumulate any sort of savings, it can't be the last thing you do at the end of the month after you've spent all your money. You need to prioritise it, and that is one thing I have continued to do years on end, and it's served me really well. So do prioritise savings. Number 6 is a capsule wardrobe. Now, I stopped quite early on with the strict I can only have 30 items or 40 items or whatever it was, and I also stopped doing the one in, one out thing. But when I do feel like I need something for my wardrobe, that usually stems from I need to replace something I already had, whether it was old, worn, not the right size anymore, whatever it is. It's usually a replacement item for something that already works within my capsule wardrobe, or something I know will just add to what already works. So I would never go out, well, I never go out shopping as like to go and look anyway. I only ever go out to buy something because I know what I want and I go out to buy it. But I will never buy something without thinking it through. Which outfits is this going to work into? Is it going to go more than one way? Does it coordinate into the rest of my wardrobe? I won't buy an odd thing that's not going to fit into the rest of my wardrobe. I think of it as one big thing, and so buying this one item that doesn't really tie into the rest of it because I like it and I want to try something new. I'm kind of past all of that, and I just buy things that work for my wardrobe as it is and will just add to the outfits I can create, rather than buying something that I've then got to match up and buy more things to make the outfits, if that makes sense. Number 7 is meal plan. Every single week we plan what meals we want, and then we do our weekly food shop and we buy our ingredients to go with those meals, and if we want to, then a few treats. But I plan my meals for work. We take lunches every day so that we can keep that structure, save money, save waste, and we do the same with our evening meals as well. And that just works for us, mainly on the saving money and minimising waste aspect. It's also another way of being in a routine. There's none of this, what am I having for dinner tonight? Because it's on my board. I've filled in my board on a Sunday, we've gone out and got all the groceries, and we are set for the week and we know what we're doing. It even means you can plan your day down to how long does this meal take to prepare, and make sure you've got the time to do that. That's a longer meal to cook, so I'll do that on a day where the session at the gym is shorter. Something like that. Number 8 is that I prioritise health. It's one thing my dad has always said to me, is to always prioritise your health. It's one thing that's very difficult to get back if you get into bad habits with it. So I don't mean that in that I never treat myself, but I do exercise regularly now from a health point of view more than an image point of view. I still have desires to look a certain way and try to look a certain way, but more importantly, I exercise and do different things in terms of exercise for my health. So I run anything from 1 to 3 times a week. I try to go to the gym 3 times a week. I play badminton once a week. And then there are other things I do here and there, like riding and shooting, which in their own ways are exercise, but I don't do those as regularly. And tying in with the meal planning, because of that, it means I generally eat better, because I'm planning my meals on things like how many vegetables we're getting, protein intake, lower calories, lower sugar, and things like that. And I think prioritising health is really important from a minimal, simplistic well-being perspective, because if your health is good, that's one less thing to be stressed about. And so it's bringing you that peace in a way, if you look after yourself as much as you can. Number 9, really coming into this more sort of well-being mindset sort of thing, and that is being the best version of myself. It might sound really cheesy and you might be thinking, how does that tie to minimalism? Again, it's down to minimizing stress. If I'm the best person I can be at work, if I'm kind and I work hard and I do my job well, then there's nothing that's going to come back and get me. No one's going to come and tell me I'm doing a rubbish job. And if they can see that my heart is in the work I've done, and maybe I've misinterpreted something, maybe I've done something slightly wrong, then their criticism is only going to be about my work and not about my work ethic, not about me personally. And usually in a professional environment, that's easier to overcome than if you've just been lazy. They're going to call you out on that and they're going to want to know why. In relationships, avoiding drama, being the best version of yourself in a relationship, whether it's a friendship or family or your partner, not giving reason to cause arguments. Of course you'll have disagreements, but you can have disagreements and be respectful. So just being that best person in as many situations as you can minimizes stress, even out in public. I don't want to cause problems for myself. I'm not going to cause drama with people. You know, I'm not going to do anything that could be considered disruptive or criminal out in the community, because as well as, you know, negatively affecting other people, that could come back on me, and that's something for me to stress about. So I always just try to be the best version of myself in what I do in order to minimize the backlash in a way, because that minimizes my stress. And you know, it's good to be a good person. And my last one, number 10, I kind of just feel like it encompasses everything I've already said. I keep looking over there, it's because my list is written down over there. And that is to protect my peace as much as I can. And there are aspects of my life where that is harder. Like, for example, at work. I can't be minimal at work. I tried it in the early days. It can't be done. My work is time demanding. It is energy demanding, even down to physical objects. It is resource demanding. I can't make my job simpler. It doesn't work. I'm not in an industry that allows for that. And so protecting my peace in other ways is important to me, through keeping my home calm, keeping it my sanctuary, keeping it tidy, keeping it clutter-free and minimal. Like I said about relationships and the social side of things, keeping that simple, keeping that minimal, being in a routine. Number 10 just really brings it all together. Protecting my peace is the best thing I've ever taken from minimalism. Even down to things like having your it really does just pull them all together. Having your savings, because if something goes wrong, you've got that safety net. And so again, you're protecting your peace as much as possible by not having these other stress factors. And in some areas of your life you can't, and so do it in the areas you can. That's, for me, it's my most important takeaway from minimalism. And with that in mind, here are my 5 that I absolutely just cannot continue to do anymore. I've stopped doing, and I think it's okay that I've stopped. I no longer insist on the minimal aesthetic. I started there, I decluttered so much to create that minimal aesthetic, and it was fine, and it definitely worked for me for a while. And areas of my house are more towards a minimal aesthetic than others, but I don't insist on it anymore. As long as the space is clutter-free and it's manageable, I do not need for everything to be, you know, the sleek, high-gloss, mass-produced IKEA aesthetic anymore. I've had that phase of my life, and it doesn't have to be like that for me to still feel calm in my space. I no longer follow strict no-buy rules. Those rules taught me so much, but those habits are ingrained now. I don't need to tell myself I can't buy clothes for 6 months or anything like that. As I've already said, I'm very intentional with purchasing and spending money, and so because of these things, I don't need strict rules anymore. I can trust myself to be sensible, and I can also understand when purchasing can bring a bit of joy, and sometimes putting such strict limitations on yourself does the exact opposite, and the goal here is to be happy. So because I'm now well trained with good habits and I prioritise saving, I know that I can trust myself to not have strict rules. My next one is that I don't always put cost in money above cost in time. In other words, sometimes it's okay to pay for convenience in my head, because I've very quickly learnt that time is my most valuable resource. I can always earn more money, but I can't earn more time. And I've already said, I'm very sensible with money and saving, so don't get me wrong. This doesn't mean I feel like I can just pay my way through life for convenience. You know, I am not a millionaire. I can't afford to do that. But there are some things where I will choose to pay over spend the time. And for me, it's things like car wash. I can get my car washed outside, cleaned throughout inside at the expense of about £15, and I can get that done at the place down the road in half an hour. If I'm going to do that myself, it's going to take me about 3 hours, probably more, to achieve what they do down at the car wash place. That's one of those things where I would rather pay the £15 than lose 3 or more hours of my life doing it. I've also had for a very long time a mentality of I won't pay for it if I can do it at home myself, and I've had a bit of shift on that mentality as well, depending on the circumstance. So there are some things I won't pay for because I can do them myself, but there are things that I find are an exception to this rule. One of them is my gym membership. For years I said I will never pay for a gym because I can just work out at home and achieve the same results. To some extent, yes, that's true. I think it largely depends on the person, the resources you have available to you at home, your motivation and things like that. I thrive in the gym environment. I thrive from the energy. I also do better with equipment that makes it easier for me to target the things I want to. So for me, paying for a gym membership is worth it compared to saying, well, I won't pay it and I'll save 30, whatever it is, pounds a month and just do it myself at home. I don't always have the mindset that I will do it myself from home. I don't have the same sort of resources. My next one is I no longer declutter all the time. And part of that comes from being so hardcore on my decluttering to begin with. There's not as much stuff in my space that I would want to declutter now. But also, I don't need to be in a rush to declutter. I did that early on, and I've said it a lot of times, I'm very lucky that there were only ever 1 or 2 small things that I actually regretted decluttering, but there could have been so many more. It doesn't have to be a rushed process. We can slow down, take the time, think about it before rushing to declutter. So of course I will still continue to declutter, but it doesn't have to be a mad rush, and it doesn't have to be something that is like a hobby that defines me because I want to be a minimalist. And my last one is, I don't really practice mindfulness under particular definitions. So what I mean by that is I don't journal. I don't stop to take the time to reflect on my day anymore. I had a whole year where I did do it, and yes, it was a rewarding practice, but I find it takes too much time. Journaling, I went overboard one year tracking everything, and again, some tracking is really good, but some of it was not, and trying to do it all, it became too much. So being that really sort of reflective practitioner in terms of what you're doing in life, what you're doing day to day, I have really started to let that slip. As well, in terms of things like gratitude journaling, I think with that, that's one thing that I've pretty much got in my head all the time anyway. But yeah, really taking the time to stop and pause and think about my day, where my life's going, some of my bigger goals. Like, the bigger goals are in my head, but I don't very often stop and pause and reflect on the progress I'm making towards them. I kind of just continue ploughing on, and that's not a good thing necessarily, but it's not a habit. It's not a skill that's particularly built into me. I don't find it comes easy, and I've spent a lot of time beating myself up about the fact that I'm not very mindful and that I probably should be. But I think it is time to just put my hands up and say, I don't really have the time to do this right now. And so that part of being minimal, just, it doesn't come easy to me. I don't find time to, as I say, journal and write things down. And I'm not sure actually if it's something I force because I feel like I have to do it, and how much I'd enjoy it. So I think that must mean it's time to wrap this video up. I know I've been talking too long when my voice starts to go. So I will leave this video here. I hope you found some of it interesting. Of course, we're all different. Not all of my things that I do, you will do, and some of the things that I don't do, you might think are really key, pivotal cornerstones to minimalism. But this is just my journey, and I wanted to share those things with you. So thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, do give it a thumbs up. If you're interested in more content on minimalism, saving, in fact, all sorts of stuff now, my channel's quite broad in what I like to talk about, then hit the subscribe button. If you're sticking around to watch another video, I will pop one on the screen that I think you might enjoy. Otherwise, I will see you in another video very soon. Until next time, take care. Bye.